Midsummer is next Friday, June 19th. It's a red day, which means I'll miss SFE. In fact, this weekend, some schools just graduated, and Linköping is full of student parties and honking trucks, and kids in white caps celebrating everywhere. The energy is loud and young and a little chaotic. But by Friday, those graduates will be heading out to summer houses with their families, and the grocery stores are already piling up with new potatoes and strawberries and tubs of herring and bright sauces. And somewhere in the back of the refrigerator section, behind your regular fish, you can find the surströmming, those cans with the slightly bulging ends. The first time I ever smelled it wasn't even at a party. Someone opened a can in the courtyard of our building back when I was new here. And before I could even figure out what was happening, my husband, who is Swedish, who knows exactly what that smell means, crossed the apartment in like 3 seconds, closed every window, and he was like, oh my God, someone has opened surströmming. Then he pulled up YouTube and showed me video after video of people trying it for the first time, gagging, crying, throwing up in someone's garden. If you ever need to add some comedy to your life, just Google people trying surströmming and watch full-grown adults realize they are in way over their heads. I don't know how Swedes eat it, but they do. Outside with schnapps and friends and the sun refusing to set. And honestly, that's Sweden right there. A country that celebrates the longest day of the year by eating things that smell like a Viking funeral and dancing like frogs around a pole covered in flowers. Welcome to Midsummer. Welcome back to Beyond the Swedish Postcard. So, like I said, I'm missing SFE next Friday. It's a red day, Midsummer's Eve. And honestly, I needed the break. This week, we started prepositions and particle verbs. The prepositions I can almost handle, but particle verbs are a different beast. You take a verb you know, känna, to feel, and add a little word. And suddenly, känna igen doesn't mean feel again, it means recognize. Komma is to come, but komma ihåg isn't come around, it's remember. The particle doesn't just tweak the meaning, it detonates it. You just have to memorize them all. My brain is mush. But it got me thinking. Particle verbs are about transformation. One small addition changes everything. And midsummer is kind of the same thing. Take a field, add a maypole, add flowers and schnapps, and a sky that won't go dark. And suddenly it's not just a Saturday in June, it's the longest day of the year. And the whole country is standing in the light, refusing to waste a single minute of sun. Since midsummer is almost here, I wanted to do a special bonus episode. Something lighter, not our usual deep dive into bloodbaths and beheadings. Something that gets at what the celebration actually is, where it came from, why we still do it, and why it's okay that a horror movie made the rest of the world terrified of it. Next week, we'll get back to the heavy stuff, the Doctor War, the peasant resistance, Gustav Vasa's Iron Fist. But first, let's talk about crop magic, love spells, frogs, and why the old ways still matter. Before it was a Christian feast, before it was a national holiday, midsummer was a celebration of life. Not just human life, all of it. The crops are pushing up from the soil, the animals in the pastures, the green things that had to survive and grow if people were going to eat through the next winter. The summer solstice marked the peak of the sun's power. In the north, above the Arctic Circle, the sun literally doesn't set. Even down here, where I am, the darkness only lasts a few hours, a pale twilight that never becomes night. After months of cold and dark, the sun at its strongest felt like a gift. It was also a responsibility. You had to participate. You had to encourage the land. You had to make sure the harvest would come. This was fundamentally an agricultural holiday. The Vikings, according to the National Trust, used the long daylight hours to settle disputes, hold assemblies, or even launch raids. But they also lit bonfires to honor the sun and protect the crops from whatever might threaten them. Greenery was brought indoors, branches, leaves, wildflowers, to transfer the vitality of the fields into the home. Feasting, drinking, and fertility rituals were all tied to the same idea. The land was alive, and human beings needed to join in that life, to dance in it, to sing it, to make it stronger. The historian Andreas Nordberg, who has studied the pre Christian solar calendar in Scandinavia, describes the solstice as one of the great turning points of the year. It was a moment when the boundary between the natural and the supernatural felt thin. Plants gathered on Midsummer's Eve were believed to hold stronger healing powers. Springs and streams carried extra energy. Magic was possible, not in the fairy tale sense, but in the sense that people believed they could influence the forces that govern their survival. And the most important visible symbol of all of this is the maypole, a tall wooden pole wrapped in birch leaves and wildflowers raised in the center of a field. Its origins are debated. Some say it's an ancient phallic symbol planted in the earth to bless the soil and bring a strong harvest. Others trace it to German traditions that arrived in the late Middle Ages. It's probably both, but the impulse behind it is unmistakable. You raise something green and alive in the middle of the village, and you dance around it, and you say to the land, "Wake up, grow, give us what we need." Now, inside this big communal agricultural celebration, there were quieter rituals, personal ones, and this is where the love magic comes in. If the whole world was humming with life and fertility on Midsummer's Eve, then why wouldn't that include your own future, your own heart? So, young women especially would pick 7 or 9 different kinds of wildflowers. They did it in silence, sometimes crossing fields and climbing fences and passing through courtyards without speaking a word. Then they placed the flowers under their pillow, and if they did everything right, they would dream of their future husband or wife. This wasn't the main event. The main event was the sun and the soil and the collective exhale of a community that had survived another winter. But the love magic was real, and it was old, and it was practiced quietly while the bonfires burned and the songs went on outside. Britannica and Swedish folklore archives record this tradition going back centuries. The rules varied by region, 7 flowers or 9, different parishes or just different fields. Sometimes you had to jump over a fence or cross water, but the core was the same. On this one night when the veil was thin and the natural world was alive with power, you could catch a glimpse of your future. That's the old way. Not flower crowns and group photos, that comes later. This was about the harvest first, but it made room for quieter hopes too. Standing alone in the field at midnight, picking flowers without making a sound, hoping to dream of the person you would marry. Quiet, private, a little eerie, the pre Christian bones of midsummer, still visible if you know where to look. And when Christianity arrived in Sweden slowly over centuries, it didn't erase the solstice, it gave it a new name. The Catholic Church tied the summer solstice to the feast of St. John the Baptist on June 24th. John was the cousin of Jesus, born 6 months before him. So if Christmas fell in the winter solstice, John's feast landed naturally at the summer one. The old pagan bonfires became St. John's fires. The celebration of the sun became a celebration of a saint. This is a pattern across Europe. The church often absorbed pre Christian traditions rather than destroy them. People kept raising the maypole, they kept gathering greenery, they kept the fires burning, but now a priest might bless the proceedings. There might be a mass in the morning before the drinking starts. The church laid a new layer over the old one, but the old one never fully disappeared. And then, over time, another layer grew on top, the dancing, the frog dance. Smågårdarna, smågårdarna. You hop around the maypole singing about how frogs have no ears and no tails. The lyrics make no sense. Nobody knows all the words. Everyone does it anyway. It's absurd and joyful and completely unself-conscious. And it's been around long enough that it feels ancient, even if it probably isn't. The maypole and the frog dance are the public face of midsummer now, loud and communal and silly. But beneath them, that old agricultural magic is still there. The pole is still planted in the earth. The flowers on it come from the same fields where the 7 flowers were picked. The circle dance echoes rituals we can only guess at. Rituals meant to wake the soil, to bless the harvest, to make sure the sun came back again. Midsummer is layers. A top layer is a party, the bottom layer is something else entirely. So, what does a modern midsummer actually look like? First, leave the city if you can. Midsummer is not really an urban holiday. You go to the countryside or to an island, or at least a park big enough to hold a maypole and a few hundred people. And you wear a flower crown. Now, this is important. The flower crown today is not about matchmaking. It's for everyone. People of all genders and ages, children make them, adults make them, even teenagers who are too cool for everything else would tolerate a flower crown on midsummer. You weave birch leaves and wildflowers, daisies, buttercups, clover, whatever you can find, into a wreath and you wear it all day. And something shifts when you put it on. You stop being a person with a job and a phone and a to-do list. You become part of the field, part of the light, part of something older. By the end of the day, the flowers are wilting and the leaves are drooping. And you don't care because you've been wearing it for 12 hours and it's the most beautiful you've felt all year. Then there's also the food, herring or sill, and a dozen different marinades: mustard, dill, onion, and garlic. New potatoes, small and waxy, boiled with dill, eaten with butter, hard boiled eggs, crisp bread, cheese, maybe some grilled salmon, strawberries for dessert with cream, and schnapps. Every shot comes with a song. Hellan går, everyone sings. You take the shot, you eat more herring, then another shot. The songs are short and repetitive, and nobody admits they don't know the words. And somewhere, someone opens a can of surströmming. The can bulges because it's been fermenting for months. The smell is apocalyptic. You eat it outdoors with tunnbröd and butter and potatoes and chopped onion. I've heard it's an acquired taste. Many Swedes love it. Many Swedes also refuse to let it in the house. My husband is in the second camp, and I agree. There won't be any surströmming in this house. It's a feast of early summer, everything fresh, everything new, everything tasting of the season after the long dark. Now, I can't talk about Midsummer without mentioning the movie because for a lot of people outside of Sweden, the 2019 film Midsommar is the only thing they know about this holiday. Directed by Ari Aster, it's a folk horror masterpiece. A group of American grad students travel to a remote Swedish commune for a midsummer festival that only happens every 90 years. Starts beautiful, white dresses, flower crowns everywhere, dancing around a maypole in the golden light, and then it gets very, very dark. Now you see why the flower crowns are so central to the film. They're beautiful and innocent and just a little unsettling when you see 100 people wearing them all at once, all smiling, all dancing, and the sun never setting. It's the most photogenic thing you'll ever see. And also, if you think about it too long, you start to understand why Ari Aster went the way he did in the movie. The film features intense maypole dancing where the last dancer standing is crowned May Queen. That part is a mix of real Swedish midsummer customs and older May Day traditions from other parts of Europe. And then the film adds sacrificial offerings, including someone stuffed inside a gutted bear carcass, an element drawn from actual Norse berserker myths. And then there's the ättestupa, the cliff where elderly people jump to their deaths, and the young women feeding their pubes into the men's food to make them fall in love. The whole thing is just so freaking weird. I watched it once and I still don't know what to do with it. Here's what you need to know and what I need to tell you. Real midsummer has exactly none of this. No sacrifices, no bear carcasses, no cliff jumping, no pubes in your potatoes, just herring and bad singing, and maybe your uncle crying into his schnapps. The movie is fiction. Beautiful, horrifying, deeply unsettling fiction. But I think the film tapped into something real. The sense that beneath the flowers and the sunlight, midsummer does feel ancient and a little strange. It's not just a picnic, it's a day when the old world pokes through, when the veil feels thin, when a country that prides itself on being rational and modern lets itself be pagan for a night. Ari Aster took that feeling and pushed it into a nightmare extreme. But the feeling is real. If you've ever stood in a field at midnight in June, watching the sky refuse to darken, you know what I mean. So, why does any of this still matter? Here's what I've noticed since moving here. Midsummer is Sweden's real national holiday. The actual national day, June 6th, the day Gustav Vasa was elected king, the day the old government was formed, people get the day off. The royal family waves, it's quiet, it's polite. Midsummer is not polite. Midsummer is the day Swedes let themselves be old and pagan and rural. Even the ones who live in apartments and work in tech and haven't seen a cow in person. Everyone goes back to the village or someone's village or a friend of a friend's summer house or a park. They drink schnapps and sing songs their grandparents sang and dance like frogs and stay up till the sky gets light again. It's a collective exile from the long winter. For an immigrant watching it from the outside, it's beautiful and strange. This country that spends half of its year in darkness, that can be reserved and quiet and hard to read, explodes with joy on the longest day. They wear flowers, they sing badly, they eat things that smell like death and taste like summer. They let the old gods back in just for a night, and then they go back to work on Monday. And that's the partikel verb thing I keep coming back to. One small addition changes everything. Take a regular Saturday in June, add a maypole and some schnapps, and a sun that won't set, and suddenly it's midsummer, the longest day, the one where the veil is thin, the one where people once danced to wake the soil, and some still do, even if they don't quite know why. Next week, we'll get back to the heavy stuff, the Dr. War, peasant resistance, and Gustav Vasa. But this week, if you're in Sweden, go stand in a field somewhere, eat some herring, try not to open the surströmming indoors. And if you're somewhere else watching from far away, maybe pick 7 flowers and put them under your pillow, just in case. The old magic was about the harvest first, but it always made room for love. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would mean a lot if you shared it with someone who's also trying to figure this country out. And if you haven't followed or subscribed yet, hit that button so you don't miss the next one. And keep looking beyond the Swedish postcard. Tack så mycket for listening. Hej då for now.